Many people dream of experiencing a state of flow in their lives. They want to feel that very sense of ease in which everything around them moves naturally, comes together, and unfolds as a result of their very presence. And yet, the overwhelming majority of people spend most of the energy of their conscious attention holding on to what is familiar and habitual. Why does this happen? It's quite simple. The brain is the reason. By its very nature, the brain is an archive of the past, a chronicle of everything you have learned, lived through, and experienced up to the present moment. This means that if, upon waking in the morning, you do not connect yourself to an unknown image of the future, you automatically remain within the old neural patterns of the past, and that means you continue to think from the past. In the same way, if you wake up in the morning believing in your past more than in your future, you return once again to the same familiar feelings. You see the same people, find yourself in the same places, and perform the same actions. It is the environment that begins to determine how you think and what you feel. And as long as your thoughts and emotions are shaped by the external world, flow does not arise in your life. It is quite natural in such a state to feel bad, to experience shame, guilt, or a sense of your own worthlessness. Over time, you simply get used to living this way. These states are records from the past because any feelings and emotions are the final product of previous experiences. So when you wake up in the morning and relive the same emotions, they automatically direct your thoughts. By the very nature of emotions, you begin to think from the past. And if you think from the past, you do not expect anything new to happen in your life, because flow is absent. Most people cling to what is familiar, known, and predictable. They are drawn to certainty because the unknown frightens them with its unpredictability. They would rather hold on to guilt than take a step into the unknown. It feels easier to remain in fear than to believe in possibility. They will rationalize, make excuses, and say anything about the future they supposedly want. But we enter flow only when we decide to take a step into the unknown without being able to predict the outcome. Yes, it is uncomfortable. Yes, there is uncertainty. And without a doubt, there is an element of unpredictability. But it is precisely in this emptiness, precisely in this not knowing, that real magic is born. If you learn to live in the unknown, you will stop giving your attention and energy to the past and begin directing your gaze toward a new future. And only by overcoming ourselves are we able to see and create a new future. This is because most people perceive their lives on a neurological, emotional, and chemical levels through the lens of the past. Only when a person steps beyond the familiar self does he or she begin to see what is possible. And when someone truly steps beyond those limits, even for a moment, and begins to think about a desired, beautiful future, they are already creating a new experience or event. The very act of embracing the emotion of the future before the event takes place helps the brain and body transition from living in the past to living in the future. Your body, chemically and emotionally, is as if it is tasting the future. And it does not matter that you may have done the same thing day after day. Once you begin to move your energy from the past into an unknown future, into a future you cannot yet see or feel but have thought about many times, your brain literally begins to change. It starts to perceive the future as something that has already happened, simply because of the power of thought. If you are able to begin mentally rehearsing who you will become, connecting with your wealth, freedom, abundance, and love, this act of inner rehearsal will continue to expand the neural networks in your brain. This will allow you to act in accordance with your intention. If you return to this image again and again, it will become your program, which over time will become you, the foundation of your personality. But there is a challenge here. You must begin teaching your body on an emotional level what your future will feel like before it manifests. Let us recall materialists. people who define reality through their senses. They usually wait for something to happen in order to feel love. You need to reverse this process, because when you begin to experience the emotion of an event before it occurs, that accepted emotion starts sending new signals to new genes, physically changing your body. As a result, you begin to perceive future events as though they have already happened. Research in the field of epigenetics shows that you are capable of selecting and activating new genes before the external environment changes. What does this mean for you in practice? It means that the moment you begin to feel abundance, begin to sense your own value and worth, you are preparing your body for that future experience. The more you love yourself, the more you love life, the more your outer experience will correspond to that inner state. The stronger your sense of wholeness, gratitude, and self-worth, the longer you need to sustain this elevated state. Sooner or later, you will begin to notice feedback in your life. Most often, it arrives in ways you did not expect, surprising you and catching you off guard. This is what the unknown is. Synchronicities and coincidences begin to appear in your life as a result of simply holding a certain state of mind. The ease of allowing possibility and trusting the unknown or the future allows the universe to arrange events in accordance with your intentions and your energy. And when flow begins to emerge in your life, you start to realize that you are the creator of your reality, not a victim of circumstances. Our research shows that when you combine a clear intention, a precise vision of what you want to bring into being in the future, with an elevated emotion arising from the heart, whether it is gratitude, inspiration, joy, or a sense of freedom, it is this combination of clear intention and elevated emotion that begins to transmit new information into the quantum field. The longer you are able to sustain this state of being, the more remarkable events begin to occur. Your body starts to be drawn toward a new future, or better yet, that future begins moving toward you. And then an important question arises. What exactly are we transmitting into the quantum field day after day? Because the nature of the emotions you experience in response to the circumstances of your life is directly connected to your past. The primary emotions of a reactive state are usually anger, aggression, hatred, irritation, judgment, envy, jealousy, fear, anxiety, worry, guilt, shame, and depression. These emotions are derivatives of stress hormones. They literally drain the body's vital energy. When this happens, the electromagnetic field around the body contracts, and on a chemical level, the light field diminishes. We have measured this. In such a state, you have no energy left to create a new future, to heal, to experience abundance, or to design a new purpose. You deplete the vital resources of your body. And if you continue to shrink the electromagnetic field, you become more matter and less energy, more particle and less wave. As a result, you turn into matter trying to influence matter. In this state, it is impossible to be in flow. When you are matter attempting to affect matter, you are separated from the informational field that actually creates flow. This sense of separation causes us to define reality through the five senses. We say, "I am here and my dream is there." And then a feeling of lack and need arises, a separation between you and what you want. As a result, you begin to control everything. Materialists, who define reality through the senses, would say of one woman that she had no reason to love life. She lost her husband, her job, could not care for her children, was paralyzed, had cancer, and faced many other severe circumstances. But she made a choice. Every day she gathered herself and brought her body into a state of living in the future, not in the past. She stood before people and said, "How I love my life." And that meant she truly created her life because she chose to love it. She overcame herself. She did not get stuck in the past. Every day, day after day, she worked on herself, overcoming herself a little more each time, removing aspects of the limited self in order to create a higher state, taking off the masks and releasing the emotions that blocked the flow of intelligence. Every day she established contact with this power within herself, and sooner or later she began to receive accurate inner instructions for creating a new future. To create a new future, clear intention and elevated emotions are required. Can we teach people to let go of resentment, impatience, and disappointment? Because in these states, the heart falls out of rhythm. It is like pressing the gas pedal and the brake at the same time. The body releases stimulating chemicals. The heart begins to race because the body perceives this as survival mode, as if a predator were chasing you. Blood rushes to the limbs, yet you are not running, fighting, or hiding. Can people replace addictive survival emotions with emotions of a higher order? The heart is the center of polarity, the center of duality. Its magnetic field is energy. Energy has coherence, and every frequency carries information. And when people begin to overlay conscious thoughts onto this coherent energy, the combination of probabilities of the brain and the heart begins to change a person's energy. And when a person's energy changes, their life changes as well. When energy enters the heart, it amplifies the signal sent to the brain, and the brain begins to function in a new way. We conducted measurements to prove this relationship. Many people say, "I want abundance in my life. I want new relationships. I want to be free." However, the decisions they make are most often based on a sense of lack formed by past experience, previous relationships, circumstances, or situations in which they felt dependent and out of control. Only a few take the time to truly reflect on what it actually means to be free, and even fewer develop sufficient attention to deep contemplation of what genuinely healthy, mature relationships might look like. It is precisely this process of conscious reflection that begins to form a new neurological architecture in the brain, preparing it for future experience. And the clearer and more detailed the future you wish to live becomes in your mind, the more consciously you will be able to create a corresponding outcome. Many claim they want to be wealthy, want new relationships, or strive for freedom, yet they lack the neural circuitry that would even allow them to understand, let alone create, the reality they desire. Why is this so important? Because if you truly intend to create a new future, the more you know about the future you plan to bring into being, the richer your imagination becomes. The longer you hold your attention on that image, the more actively the process of neural activation, reprogramming, and the formation of new connections in the brain begins. As a result, the hardware gradually turns into software. Over time, you begin to naturally think like a prosperous person, behave like someone in love with themselves and with life, and feel greater freedom in your world. How you think, how you act, and what you feel is your personality. And personality is directly and deeply connected to the reality in which you live. So don't take my word for it. Try it yourself. Become a researcher of your own life. Set aside time for this and completely disconnect from the circumstances of the external world. Close your eyes, play soft, calming music in the background, or create a sound barrier of silence, and begin consciously constructing your future, transmitting to your body on the level of emotion what that future will feel like. When you begin to see the real fruits of your inner work, you will prove to yourself that you are no longer a victim of circumstances, but the creator of your life. And in the moment when you suddenly experience a state of flow, when your heart opens, you will become far more willing to trust the unknown and the future than the past in which you once placed so much faith. I just spoke about the fact that in order to obtain the desired result, it is necessary to bring thoughts into alignment with feelings and then release excessive concern about the details of how exactly that result will be achieved. This is the leap into the unknown. If, instead of monotonous and predictable scenarios, we want our lives to be filled with the joy of new sensations and quantum surprises, this leap must be taken. But for desires to truly manifest into reality, one more step into the unknown is required. When you are asked what you feel grateful for, most often you answer, "I am grateful for my family, for my home, for my friends, for my job." All of these things have one thing in common: they already exist in your life. As a rule, we are grateful for what has already happened or already exists. We have been conditioned to believe that one should not feel joy without a reason, experience gratitude without cause, or feel love without solid grounds. In other words, our inner state is made dependent on external circumstances. This is the Newtonian model of reality. The new quantum model, on the other hand, requires us as creators to produce inner changes at the level of the brain and body, thoughts and feelings, without waiting for our senses to register external changes. Are you capable of feeling gratitude for a desired event and rejoicing in it before it happens? Can you imagine a future reality so vividly that you can immerse yourself in it today? From the perspective of quantum creation, can you be grateful for what already exists in the quantum field as potential, but has not yet materialized? If so, it means you have stepped beyond cause and effect dependence on the external world for inner change. You have learned to independently generate desired effects, to transform from within and thereby influence the outer world. When we experience gratitude, we send a signal to the field that the event has already occurred. But gratitude must not remain only at the level of thought. You must also feel as though what you desire is already present in your life. In this case, the body, which perceives reality through sensation, is already experiencing the emotional state of a future event. Whether you realize it or not, you are constantly emitting information into the quantum field and simultaneously receiving information from it. You are a vibrational being, continuously emitting energy. If day after day you live in the same emotions that are the chemical result of past experience, you remain stuck in it. The more attention you give to these emotions and the more intensely you focus on them, the deeper they take root. If we take this idea further, it becomes obvious. To change your life and enter a state of flow, you must change your energy. The way you emit energy determines what you create. Your thoughts transmit information into the quantum field and shape it. Think of this as an electrical charge. And the feelings you experience and express return experience and information to you. This is a kind of magnetic charge that creates attraction. Therefore, to create what you desire in the flow of your life, you must transmit information and combine it with an emotion you are willing to feel even before the event occurs. In other words, if you are able to embrace the emotion of your future in advance, you will begin to enter a flow in which new events, opportunities, circumstances, coincidences, and synchronicities move toward you. What do a state of being and a laser have in common? This analogy helps illustrate another key principle of change. A laser is a signal with a high degree of coherence. In physics, this means that the waves of the signal are in the same phase, their troughs and crests align, and as a result, their power increases significantly. Waves are either aligned or not aligned, coherent or incoherent.
The same applies to thoughts and feelings. You have surely experienced situations where you tried to create something through the power of thought, convincing yourself of success, while deep down you did not believe in it. As a result, you sent an out-of-phase, incoherent signal to the world and received nothing in return. Research in the field of heart mathematics shows that quantum creation works only when thoughts and feelings are aligned. Coherence amplifies the power of the signal many times over. When clear, focused thoughts about a goal are accompanied by deep emotional engagement, you send a stronger electromagnetic signal that attracts corresponding events into your life. If your intentions do not lead to lasting improvements, most likely you are sending a mixed, incoherent signal into the field. You may desire wealth and think money thoughts, but if you feel poor at the same time, financial abundance cannot enter your life. Why? Because thoughts are the language of the brain, while feelings and sensations are the language of the body. If you think one thing and feel another, the brain and body send conflicting signals, and the quantum field cannot provide a clear response. When the brain and body act in harmony, when thoughts match feelings, you enter a new state of being, and the signal you emit becomes coherent. Why then should quantum results be unexpected? Let us add one more element to this picture. To change reality, it is not at all necessary to know exactly how the desired outcome will materialize. Let it surprise us, even astonish us. There is no need to predict the form in which the fruits of creation will appear. Their purpose is to catch us off guard and awaken us from the sleep of habitual reality. Such manifestations leave no doubt that we have come into contact with an intelligent quantum field and inspire us to take new steps. This is the joy of creation. There is nothing new in predictable events. They are familiar and happen automatically. This has happened to you thousands of times already. If you can predict an event, it means your past has created yet another familiar result. By trying to control the outcome, you return to the Newtonian position. Classical Newtonian physics was built on cause and effect relationships and the attempt to predict the future. In the context of creation, this means surrendering control over the inner world, thoughts and feelings, to external circumstances. But we must do the opposite. First, change the inner world, habitual thoughts and emotions, and then observe the response of the outer world. Strive to create the unknown, a completely new future, and you will be pleasantly surprised when favorable events begin to occur in your life in the most unexpected ways. At that moment, you become a quantum creator. You move beyond causality and learn to generate desired outcomes. Hold a clear intention, but entrust the details of its realization to the unpredictable quantum field. Let it decide how events enter your life in the best possible way. If there is anything worth expecting, it is the unexpected. Surrender to the quantum field, trust it, and allow what you desire to occur beyond your control. For many people, this is the most difficult part of the process because we are accustomed to controlling the future by trying to reproduce the past. You wake up every morning and feel the same way you always have. First of all, this means that nothing truly new is happening in your life. And if the feelings and emotions that are the final product of past experience continue to govern your thoughts and behavior, then by thinking and acting the same way as before, you become completely predictable. These emotions generate certain thoughts, and thoughts, in turn, give rise to new emotions. Emotions again trigger similar thoughts, and the constant repetition of this closed loop of thoughts and feelings forms a stable state of being. In other words, thoughts are the language of the brain, while feelings and sensations are the language of the body. Your state of being is made up of how you think and what you feel. For most people, life experience becomes deeply imprinted on the emotional level. They feel fear, anger, anxiety, bitterness, disappointment, and insecurity. Over time, these emotions become part of their identity. When certain thoughts arise, the brain begins to operate according to a familiar pattern, and the person feels vulnerable. A sense of insecurity emerges, and thoughts become even more defensive. These thoughts trigger chemical reactions that intensify the feeling of being unsafe. And then a person begins to say, "I am insecure." And when you say "I," you are issuing a command to your body and your biology. The biology of most people largely reflects their past, and if you do not define yourself by a vision of the future and new possibilities, you remain with old brain circuits and emotions from the past. But when you begin to contemplate new possibilities, the brain begins to build new sequences, new patterns, and new combinations. You begin to plan your behavior and mentally rehearse who you want to be in this life. Simple mental rehearsal initiates the formation of new neurological circuits. The brain begins to perceive this as if the event has already happened. If you think the same thoughts in the same sequence over and over, you program yourself. Then the brain stops being merely a record of the past and becomes a map of the future. The next step is to begin emotionally experiencing your future before it appears in your life. In other words, you don't wait for healing to feel healed, you begin to feel it in advance. You don't wait for new relationships to feel love. You don't wait for a mystical moment to feel awe. You don't wait for success to strengthen your self-worth. This is the old model of reality, based on cause and effect, in which we wait for something external to change our inner state. And then, after feeling an inner change, we associate it with some external event. This is how associative memories are formed. The new model suggests the opposite. First, create the effect. This means you must feel awe before the mystical moment. You must feel confidence in order to create success. You must feel wholeness in order to heal. You must love yourself and life for love to appear in your reality. When a person trains their body to emotionally feel the future before it happens, and does so correctly, the body and subconscious begin to believe that they are already living in that future reality. At that moment, the person begins sending commands to new genes in a new way, restructuring the organism as if the event has already occurred. Thus, you can choose a new potential in the quantum field where an infinite number of possibilities exist and begin emotionally embracing the future reality in advance, so deeply that the body, at a subconscious level, begins to believe it is already living in that future. And you literally begin to change your body through the power of thought. When tangible evidence appears in the brain and body, neurological, biological, chemical, genetic changes, you can relax. The experience will come precisely when you least expect it. That is the whole point. Everything should happen in ways we do not expect, because if we expect the result, there is nothing new in it. We have already experienced something similar. A new experience must catch us off guard, surprise us, and leave no doubt that inner changes truly caused an external effect. Then we can connect the transformations that occurred within us to how they manifested in the outer world. And it is important to understand that the unknown has nothing to do with fear or danger. It is associated with experiences that give rise to awe, wonder, freedom, and joy. Feelings that make us question the very nature of reality. When you are in flow, you are connected to something greater than yourself. When you are out of flow, you feel separated from that field. And it is precisely in the feeling of separation that need arises. Separation is duality, and then we begin to wait for something external to change our inner state. This is what is called the victim position. The true act of overcoming yourself each day begins with becoming aware of your subconscious thoughts. Write them down. These are precisely the thoughts that prevent you from entering a state of flow. Catch yourself in moments when you act automatically or speak unconsciously. Pay attention to your behavior and begin to notice unconscious habits. Become so aware of them that awareness itself becomes your second nature. Then look at the emotions that anchor you to the past. Identify them and call them by name. You may suddenly realize that you have lived your entire life feeling hatred or guilt without even being aware of it. You experienced these feelings because you believed they were who you were. The moment you are able to name an emotion, recognize it, and observe yourself as if from the outside, an important shift occurs. The very act of observing the state of the mind and body means that you are no longer those programs. You become the consciousness that observes the programs. This is where disengagement of the old self begins. This act moves you into the space of possibilities, not as a quantum particle, but as a quantum wave, where all potential outcomes exist. And remember, the longer you remain in the space of possibilities, the longer you stay in the unknown, the more new discoveries you create in your life. Groups of neurons begin to self-organize, and at the moment they form networks, the brain produces chemicals that are experienced as feelings and emotions. When you begin to feel the emotions of a new experience, such as abundance, freedom, inspiration, compassion, or love for life, you are teaching your body, on a chemical level, what your mind has already understood intellectually. If knowledge is for the mind, then experience is for the body. Experience embodies philosophy in your body, and this means you begin to change your genetic future and rewrite your biological program. The point is not to experience this once. The point is to learn how to reproduce this experience again and again, turning it into a skill you can apply in everyday life. Over time, this state becomes natural to you. You know how to enter it. This is how you move into a new state of being. My favorite occupation and my main calling is to teach people how to move from philosophy to initiation and then to mastery, from knowledge to experience and wisdom, from the mind to the body and soul, from reflection to action in real life, and from mechanical memorization to practical learning and deep understanding. The same thoughts lead to the same decisions lead to the same behaviors create the same experiences. Those same emotions in turn influence the same thoughts. Your biology, your neural networks, neurochemistry, hormones, and even gene expression always correspond to how you think, act, and feel. And how you think, act, and feel is called your personality. It is this personality that creates your personal reality. If personality creates personal reality and you want to create a new reality, a new life, then you will have to change who you are. You must change your personality. This is the first step towards transformation. You will need to become aware of what you think and change it. You will need to recognize your unconscious habits and behaviors and transform them. Then you must look honestly at the emotions that keep you anchored in the past and ask yourself, do they belong in my future?
One of the biggest problems I observe in the process of personal change and transformation is that many people try to create a new reality while remaining the same personality. This does not work. You truly have to become a different person. According to the principle of neurobiology, neurons that fire together wire together. If you continue to think the same thoughts, make the same choices, behave in the same way, and speak the same way, you will keep creating the same experiences. These experiences form familiar neural circuits and habitual emotions. By the age of 35, approximately 95% of who you are is already programmed. And when it comes time to change this set of programs, people try to use only 5% of the conscious mind against 95% of subconscious patterns. This is the problem. You can think positively all you want, repeat affirmations like, I am happy, I am healthy, I am thriving, using the conscious mind, but the body is programmed differently. You say, I am happy, and the body responds, no, you're not. This is the result of everything you have learned and experienced up to this moment. Most people, upon waking in the morning, immediately begin thinking about their problems, and problems are memories stored in the brain, associated with specific people, objects, places, and periods of time. When a person begins thinking about their problems, they are essentially returning to memories of the past, and therefore continuing to think from the past.
These problems have already been experienced, and each of them is closely linked to certain emotions. When a person thinks about them again and feels unhappy, depressed, anxious, or afraid, their body also remains in the past. After all, thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. And how you think and what you feel shapes your state of being. If day after day your life is not defined by a clear vision of the future, you continue to live in memories of the past, and your life becomes predictable. But when you begin to change your behavior and are able to act in alignment with your intentions, you gain a new experience. Philosophy and the study of new information create new synaptic connections in the brain. This is what learning is. It is the process of forming new neural circuits. However, knowledge alone merely reinforces memory. When you take philosophical information and begin to apply it in your life, and if you do it correctly, you inevitably gain a new experience. This new experience, through feedback from the environment, begins to enrich neural circuits in the brain. When these circuits are formed and reinforced, the brain produces chemicals that are experienced as feelings and emotions. At the moment you feel the emotion of a lived experience, you teach your body on a chemical level what your mind has already understood intellectually. Thus, knowledge is for the mind, but experience is for the body. And it is at this moment that philosophy becomes embodied. It becomes lived truth. When you begin activating new genes, old ones are deactivated, and you rewrite your biological program. This means that a book about compassion stops being theory. You become a compassionate person. A book about leadership stops being abstract philosophy. You become a leader. A book about parental patience stops being a discussion of who you want to be. You actually feel yourself overcoming your own impatience. And if you are able to do this even once, it means you are capable of reproducing this experience again and again. Over time, you begin to neurochemically prepare your body for what the mind has already understood. Then the body and the mind are given equal opportunity and begin to work as one. This state becomes integrated into you. It becomes part of who you are, your second nature. In nature, this looks simple. A pack of coyotes chases a deer. If the deer escapes, 15 minutes later it returns to grazing calmly on grass and berries. The stress response is over. But humans are different. A person can enter a state of stress through thought alone, whether they are thinking about the past or the future. A thought triggers the production of chemicals that activate the stress response, and if a person is unable to turn it off, they begin to get sick because the body cannot exist for long in a state of constant tension. Thus, in answering the question, we can say yes, you really are capable of activating the stress response through the power of thought alone. This is a scientifically proven fact. Moreover, stress hormones interfere with normal gene regulation, leading to the development of disease. And this means that your thoughts can literally make you sick. This raises a fundamental question. If your thoughts are capable of causing illness, is it possible that so many people do not experience flow in their lives because they live more as matter than as energy? And from this follows the next question. What information are you transmitting into the quantum field day after day? If you are primarily defined by memories of the past, and those same memories shape your idea of the future, then you are not moving towards the future. In reality, you are continuing to flow back into the past. Flow exists, but it keeps recreating the same circumstances in your life over and over again. Therefore, it makes sense to reflect on how to connect to this informational field.
When you begin to open your heart and experience elevated emotions, the heart enters a state of coherence, a state of order. The heart has a measurable magnetic field. The heart is the center of wholeness and unity, the union of polarities and duality. In this union, we feel less separation and more connection. This magnetic field of energy possesses coherence, and coherence always carries information.
To return to flow, you must let go of addictive emotions that separate you from your dreams and your future. The nature of these chemicals turns us into materialists, but when you cultivate elevated feelings, you begin to feel connected to something greater than yourself. The sense of emptiness and separation disappears. People who practice this change their brain and body and begin to live not in the past, but in the future. Think about this. Your body always follows your mind. When you have a thought in the morning to get up and go to the bathroom, you immediately imagine it, and before you even realize it, your body is already following the thought to the familiar place. When you have an image of breakfast, you see the kitchen, the table, and the food, and your body automatically moves there. The body always follows the mind. Now, imagine, what if instead of directing your attention to the familiar, you start directing it to the unknown, to new experiences? Where you direct your attention, you direct your energy. And if you begin to invest energy into a new future, you send new information into the field, and with elevated feelings, peacefully attract the desired experience. If you did this every day, your body would follow the mind into a state of flow and into the unknown experience, just as it follows the mind to the bathroom every morning. What does this have to do with everything said so far? When you are in the flow, results in your life come effortlessly through synchronicity, intuition, coincidences, and opportunities that appear as a byproduct of changing your energy. This is feedback from the environment, telling you that you are connected to the universal mind. And when you start seeing such results, when you begin to create abundance and attract experiences with elevated feelings, more and more flow will begin to appear in your life. When you become fully grounded in this state, your being, how you think, and what you feel becomes completely aligned with the future. And if you can maintain this altered state of mind and body, regardless of external conditions, old emotions, habits, and the influence of time, you will inevitably witness measurable changes in your life. These will always come in the most unexpected ways. Precisely because the expected cannot be new, these events are meant to surprise, awaken you, catch you off guard, and prove that the internal changes you made truly created an external effect. And then, when you are able to see it, you will feel a much deeper sense of connection, awareness, and flow. At that moment, it becomes clear that flow is not an external phenomenon or a rare stroke of luck, but a natural consequence of inner coherence. Flow arises when the conflict between the mind and the body, between the past and the chosen future, disappears. When you stop resisting life and begin to interact with it, energy no longer dissipates but starts working for you. At this point, the person steps out of automatic reactions. They no longer act based on old emotional patterns or unconsciously reproduce the past. Instead, conscious choice appears. You begin to notice the thought before it becomes an emotion, and the emotion before it turns into an action. It is in this gap that freedom is born. Over time, observing yourself stops being an effort and becomes a state. Old reactions may still arise, but no longer control you. Familiar thoughts emerge, but you no longer follow them. Each new choice, even the smallest one, forms new neural connections. Gradually, a new version of yourself begins to emerge, for whom different behavior becomes natural. As this new state solidifies, life's responses begin to change. People, events, and circumstances start to align differently. Not because the world has changed, but because you have.
Your inner state has shifted, and you started transmitting new information into the field. The field responds not to desires, but to the state of being. It is important to understand that a new state requires presence. It is impossible to enter the future while holding on to old emotions, fear, guilt, resentment, or shame. Letting go does not mean suppression, it means awareness without attachment. When the emotion is no longer fueled by attention, the body stops reproducing the old chemistry, and the program begins to dissolve. At this stage, there may be a sense of emptiness, the space between the old self and the new one, but it is precisely in this emptiness that the potential lies. If you can stay in it without returning to the familiar, you begin to shape yourself not from memory, but from intention. The longer this state is maintained, the deeper it roots itself. This is why significant changes often come unexpectedly, not when you are anxiously waiting for them, but when you are already internally aligned with the new. They come as a natural response, without doubts and effort. Life stops being a struggle and becomes a dialogue in which intuition replaces fear. Ultimately, transformation is not about becoming someone else, but about returning to yourself, to a state of integrity and alignment with life. And when you live from this state, each day becomes a conscious practice, and life stops repeating the past and starts unfolding something new. If you feel that this message has appeared in your life for a reason, respect this moment. Subscribe to our channel, The Power of the New Self. Turn on notifications and support this message with a like.